On today's Locked On NBA Game Night podcast, the Clippers are surging. Can they really get back into the playoff picture?
When that final buzzer rings, you know it's time for Locked On NBA Game Night. All the post-game reactions to every game across the league, every single night, with insights only the hosts at Locked On can provide. It's the true NBA fans' one stop for all the action. Every game, every night. It's Locked On NBA Game Night, tipping off now.
Let's get it going on the Locked On NBA Game Night podcast on the Locked On Podcast Network. Your teams every day. Thank you so much for making us your first listen here on the Locked On Podcast Network, the number one sports podcast network in the world. You everydayers make this show work. I'm Rylan, Stiles, host of Locked On Thunder. That's David Ramil, host of Locked On Heat. And we're bringing you everything that's happened on this Thursday night in the association. Locked On NBA Game Night every single night, Monday through Sunday nights, recapping the night that was in the NBA. David, had a fun one to start the day with your Miami Heat. They were able to beat the Detroit Pistons and stave off a late push from Detroit. What impressed you the most about this game that got up the Heat by 22, and then they ended up winning in this one, 118 to 112?
I think they did a great job of doing something that they haven't really done most of the season, which is winning with defense. This season has been so surprising from what we've seen from Miami on the offensive end. Obviously, they play at an incredibly high pace. They shoot more than any other team in the league. They shoot at a high volume, a high percentage, etc. And yet tonight's game was all about defense. And you look at the final stat line, and the one that stands out to me that proves that defense was the 31 points from Cade Cunningham. So you say, wow, 31 points. Well, yeah, a lot of those from a very generous whistle, 17 of 18 from the line, yet just 6 of 16 from the floor. So far from the MVP level performance that we've seen from Cade all season long. And I think that the combination of Davion Mitchell and Drew Smith did a really, really solid job of making things difficult for him. Jalen Duren was solid in the first half, and then he left midway through the game due to an ankle injury. So that was another weapon taken away from the Pistons. But I think the Heat did such a great job of just imposing their will defensively, making things really difficult. And yeah, when Detroit made their inevitable push throughout the game, Miami responded well. They handled all those challenges, and a lot of them came offensively from a phenomenal game from Norm Powell, him and his 36 points. Those shots were very opportunistic at key moments throughout the game. When Miami needed a bucket, there was Norm coming up huge, 7 of 14 from three-point range, like I said, for 36 points. He was just a monster. And then they get a huge bucket down the stretch from Jaime Jaquez, the leading Sixth Man of the Year candidate, I think, with his 19 points throughout the game. He was really, really solid as well. They just got some great defense from almost everybody. Wiggins, Bam Adebayo, of course, even Khalil Ware, who wasn't able to produce offensively the way he has of late, still able to make an impact on the boards with 13 of them, and really solid overall game for Miami. Their best win of the season, I would say.
Yeah, it certainly felt that way watching it, and you're the expert on Miami. It also felt like, and I feel this way every time that I watch the Heat, Davion Mitchell is like the definition of Heat culture, and somehow, like, the reason I buy into Heat culture is because somehow every year there's a new guy that I'm like, you know what? That guy needs to be in Miami forever. Davion Mitchell needs to be in Miami for the rest of his career. What he did tonight defensively, as you mentioned, the 11 assists, like, he was just a winning player for this Heat team. And even while, he only went 3 for 7 as a scorer, he was impactful in a big way in that first 5 for Miami.
Absolutely. Ever since his addition, I've said, oh, this is a Heat culture guy through and through. And then once he joined the team, the way he spoke about the team's ethos and everything else like that, you could tell he had bought in early on, and he had some incredible moments last year in Miami's short-lived and pretty forgetful playoff run, but he's been great this year, very quietly appreciated, I think, and I don't think he's getting the recognition he deserves, because he is a vital part of what they do, not just offensively, but defensively, and as he said tonight, just fighting over screens, making Cade work for shots, doing a phenomenal job, and his assist numbers, as you said, have been really, really great. He is their key playmaker. He does things to steady everybody, and then he hits a couple shots here and there to keep pace with Miami's offense, and he's been really, really great. And a little undervalued, in my opinion.
And obviously on the Detroit side, like this was they tried to pull it out in the end. Their late push was not enough. And getting down 22 is going to be hard to overcome, especially whenever you have guys like Norm Powell going off. And Detroit's still been playing well. They're 6-4 in their last 10 games. They still have the 1 seed in the East right now, with a game and a half up on New York. But from being a spectacular start to now a good start, do you think that Detroit is in a tier by themselves in this wide open Eastern Conference, or having watched this Eastern Conference take shape, do you think that the gap is not as wide as their hot start made it appear?
I don't know. They're missing Tobias Harris, and he's still important to what they do. He provides some great shooting and veteran leadership, et cetera. So I think that was pretty important for them, not having him out there. And they struggled offensively. I think it was more of just a bad game for them. I would still keep them above the other teams in the Eastern Conference, but the gap has closed, to your point. And I think you look at the East, and honestly, it still feels so wide open. All those teams in the middle, whether it's Philadelphia or Boston or Orlando or heck, even Miami, all of them have as good a chance as any. You look at the the Detroits and New Yorks, and you would say, well, maybe they're the best teams in the East right now, but it's not by that wide a margin. I don't think any team is so far. Last season, you looked at what Cleveland was able to do and during the regular season, and you said, oh, okay, well, they're untouchable. And clearly that wasn't the case in their playoff run. And so you look at this Eastern Conference right now, I'd say it's pretty much the same. 1 through 10, just as good a chance as anybody of coming out of the Eastern Conference. So I don't know if that bodes well. I'm not sure what their chances are right now. I mean, obviously the Western Conference still looks pretty dominant compared to the East, but I would say Detroit is still a really good team, well-coached team, very deep, and they had some solid performances tonight, guys off the bench, and I still think that they're one of the best teams, if not clearly the best team in the Eastern Conference.
Yeah, I think that they're for sure still in the 1 tier. I think that you can make the argument that like they're no longer alone. Like New York, only a game and a half back. Like I think that they're in that tier as well with Detroit. But I do think that there is still a wide openness to this Eastern Conference, and I'm very curious if this is going to influence any of the trade deadline information that we see. Like, does this influence how much you really want to go for it? To me, I think that it will, only for the fact of like, you just look at one example, Boston. Like, why wouldn't Boston just go trade for a Daniel Gafford if they could try to make that work, or some other low level in the sense of like low priority asset wise to give up to get a really good veteran big man to add to this team whenever you're looking at a team that has been sending every smoke signal that they've got that Jason Tatum will return. It's like even Boston now should feel like it's open to them. And that can maybe trickle down to the rest of that conference of trying to improve at the deadline and not seeing a team that they feel like is unbeatable or is going to be too tough to get through. I think in the West, there's some really good teams, but you look at it, and if you're a fringe contender, I don't know that you'd want to blow up some assets to go try to compete with OKC, Denver, and San Antonio. I think that you might just want to kind of ride it out and see what it can get you at the end. But if you're in the East, I think that you might want to burn the boats this year and see what you can do.
Yeah, it's an interesting question. You look at New York and Detroit, and I'm not sure what moves are available for those top 2 teams. But the other teams in the middle there, I guess you could make the argument Boston's getting their big midseason quote unquote trade when they do get Tatum back, if and when he does return. So that's probably going to change the dynamic a little bit. You would imagine he'll start off a little slow as he kind of works himself up and perhaps not disrupt chemistry too badly. But for a team like Miami, that's a really interesting question because, I mean, their depth has been one of their greatest strengths this year. And I think that what they're missing most on the surface is probably having that superstar. Maybe Powell played like one tonight, but I don't know that you're going to be able to count on that much. Tyler Hero has been a little inconsistent. He's been out of the lineup for most of the season. Is he going to come back and be able to fit in seamlessly? But the other teams, Philadelphia, Orlando, are they a move away? I don't know. So you would think that maybe these teams might look at them being buyers during the trade market, but it doesn't seem like it's quite such a clear-cut case either. So we'll see. One of them is going to pull the trigger. And that one obviously has a high opinion of what their chances could be. I don't know if it's Miami or not. I don't know if it's Boston or not. Either one of those teams seems like a good candidate for making a midseason upgrade of some kind.
Yeah, and Philadelphia in this wide open East should be viewed upon as possible dark horses, at least in the conference. They got back on track, putting together 2 straight wins after their skid. We'll talk about that coming up on Locked On NBA Game Night. But first, I want to say right now, our good friends over at FanDuel, go check out FanDuel today because FanDuel is awesome and it's Friday. And you know that Fridays always feel different during basketball season. With FanDuel, it's making them even better. Every Friday night, before the games tip off, FanDuel is giving fans a new way to kick off the weekend with NBA Happy Hour. NBA Happy Hour is your official pregame. It's a limited time window where special offers drop right inside the FanDuel app with the actions that are going to start the weekend for you. Fridays from 6 to 7:30 Eastern Time. Become appointment viewing in the NBA app on the NBA Happy Hour side of things for the FanDuel app, because during NBA Happy Hour in the FanDuel app from 6 to 7:30 Eastern Time, you will be able to see these promotions that get you boosts, they get you bonuses, they get you surprises, and they make it fun to start your weekend the right way whenever you're looking at these games about to start for the NBA weekend. So go check out today before tip-off, check out the FanDuel app and see what's dropping during NBA Happy Hour every Friday from 6 to 7:30 p.m. Eastern Time. A little basketball, a little action, and a whole lot of Friday energy with the NBA Happy Hour only on FanDuel, the official sportsbook partner of the NBA. We're back on the Locked On NBA Game Night Podcast on the Locked On Podcast Network, your teams every day. I'm Rylan, Stiles, host of Locked On Thunder. That's David Ramil, host of Locked On Heat, and we're going to go out to Philadelphia and Dallas. This game in Big D, the Sixers get their second straight win, snapping that losing streak with 2 straight wins now. Let's go to Locked On Sixers to hear all about it.
It hasn't been against the best opponents, but this new brand of basketball from the Sixers with Nick Nurse staggering the minutes of Joel Embiid and Tyrese Maxey seems to be working a lot better, in the offense and defense seems to have a lot more fluidity. But it does boil down now to back-to-back wins for the Sixers. They get the 123-108 win over the Dallas Mavericks Thursday night, and they get 3 scorers that finish with 22 or more points. Joel Embiid goes out there. He gets you 22. VJ Edgecombe gets you 23. And for the second straight game, Tyrese Maxey drops in 34 points against 10 assists and 8 rebounds in the win. Another great game for another 76er, Quentin Grimes, who scored 19 points for the Sixers against his old team, including knocking down 3 threes in the fourth quarter to help put the game on ice for the Sixers. Sixers went on a 17-4 run in the second quarter and pretty much controlled from that point on. Next up, it is the New York Knicks at Madison Square Garden Saturday night.
Yeah, the New York Knicks game will be a lot more fun to see this Philadelphia team. They've gotten back on track. They've beaten the teams in front of them in Memphis and Dallas, but as pointed out, not stiff competition whatsoever. It is just good, though, to see them all be on the court together, where you have Tyrese Maxey, VJ Edgecombe, Paul George, Joel Embiid. You have your guys, and in this game, Maxey, sensational. I mean, the fringe MVP candidate went for 34 points on 58% shooting, 4 for 10 from 3, 10 assists, 8 rebounds. And Tyrese Maxey's season embodies kind of what the rest of the NBA is up against. Whenever Nikola Jokic and whenever SGA are doing the historic things that they're doing, it really does overshadow what would otherwise be an amazing MVP case. Like, if you somehow look past those 2 individuals, how do you split the hairs between what Maxey's doing, Luka, Jalen Brown, Jalen Brunson, all of these guys across the association? Maxey's been incredible. VJ Edgecombe, an exceptional rookie that is going to be overshadowed in the Rookie of the Year race by Cooper Flagg, who he played tonight and outshined tonight. Con Knippel's been great as well. This has just been a lot of good talent injected into the league. VJ had 23 points on 64% shooting. And then Joel Embiid made half his shots, making 22 points in this one, playing in 36 minutes. How seriously do you take the 76ers at face value right now, in the sense of, like, do you like the bones of this team, or are you still in this kind of standoff period where it's like, you know what, we're just now into the new year. It's the first day of the new year. There's a long way to go until we get to April when it really counts. Let's see what even this team looks like by the time April rolls around.
I'm kind of leaning towards the former. I think that what they've built here with Edgecombe being the impact rookie that he has been certainly bodes well, because you look no further than tonight's win, and clearly the team is Maxey's now. It's no longer dependent upon Embiid and his shaky health. So even if he were to miss time, he's no longer the focal point. He's no longer the engine or what drives that Philadelphia team in order to eke out wins. And that kind of, to me, it feels like that's much more sustainable because you're no longer depending on him. So I think there's enough there. Clearly, you still hope that Paul George can have his moments. You still hope for big production from Embiid on occasion, but not as much as you once did. So it's a solid team. I'm just not sure that they'll be able to stay healthy enough and keep relying on Maxey at this point to be that kind of player that can carry them through a deep playoff run. So the bones, as you said, and I like that way of putting it, are feel pretty solid. And yet I don't know if the rest of it falls apart, what you're left with is just kind of a skeleton, right? So you kind of need everybody to stay healthy and be able to perform at a pretty high level. But it's pretty solid. How about you? I mean, do you see this Philadelphia team and go, oh, you know what? I like what they're doing here, or are you kind of on the opposite end of the spectrum?
This is the first time in a while that I felt like it's on a strong foundation in Philadelphia. Right. There are looming questions of like, what's Paul George going to be from here forward? It's not great on the early returns right now for this season, but you no matter what he looks like, you're going to have to navigate through those waters of like life after Paul George. You're going to have to navigate through life after Joel Embiid. But you look at what this team has as its core, and having VJ and having Tyrese Maxey feels so rock solid. Quentin Grimes in this revenge game, he's a rock solid player. I have no idea how he's already turned into a journeyman in the NBA. I think that he's going to find his home here in Philadelphia. And they've also made some really good moves on the margins, which really don't get highlighted for a team that's not considered a title contender. But whenever you look at what Trendon Watford's done for this team this season, while he was out tonight, he's been awesome. Dominic Barlow's been serviceable. Adam Bona has been really good as a guy who had a lot of knocks as a prospect. They took the chance on him. He's given them serviceable minutes. Like, they've hit some of these moves in the margins on top of hitting on VJ Edgecombe, on top of course, Tyrese Maxey's development and Tyrese Maxey's incredible, run here in Philadelphia. And that trade for Quentin Grimes in the midst of the Luka chaos last year was awesome for Philadelphia as well. So it feels like they're heading in a positive direction, regardless of what happens with Joel Embiid. And I think that that's the first time you can say that about this organization since Embiid arrived in Philadelphia. So it's got to feel good, right? At that point.
Yeah, no, I can agree with that. I think there is solid enough production there, but I'd still say that their bench is a little weak. And so if that's the case, you're still a little too top heavy. I mean, you're relying on Maxey. And look, I'm 100% sure that he's able to sustain this and keep up this incredible level of play, as you said, a fringe MVP candidate. And yet you still need your top tier talent to be healthy and productive. And so those are the questions I think that still loom, as they have for several seasons with this Philadelphia team. Like that's what's going to push them as far as it can possibly go. So we were talking about, potential trade teams in the Eastern Conference. Philadelphia seems like they're one of them, right? I mean, that's clearly the team. I mean, aside from Grimes and those other players you mentioned being okay as reserves, they look like they could use an additional boost, maybe to kind of, I don't know, maybe another backup center, because that Embiid's probably going to miss time at some point. Between Bona and Drummond, I'm not sure that that's a reliable enough combination there to keep your playoff hopes alive. So I'm not sure what the name out there is that could be linked to Philadelphia, but if there's a possibility of making an upgrade, I'm sure they'd be interested in pursuing it its furthest. Do you think that they're a team that is a trade away from being seen as a legitimate contender?
I think that they're a trade away from being seen as a serious top 6 playoff team that if the bracket breaks right for them. So I kind of consider contenders as like, I don't care what the bracket is, you're going to be able to make the conference finals or better. Like, that's how good you are. I don't care where it goes. I think that Philadelphia can get the
There's
tier
no
of
team in the East like that, though, right? I mean, that's the whole thing.
True. Yeah, that is true. There's some hiccups there, and I think that with Philadelphia, what is the reason why I would be so gung ho of making a move before the deadline is because you have Maxey playing this level of basketball. You have VJ Edgecombe who looks ready right away, and whenever we're talking about improving these other teams, you've mentioned it. What is realistically, but barring Giannis or whatever, what's realistically going to be out there for the Knicks or for Detroit? It's a lot harder to improve those teams. It's actually kind of a double-edged sword of like, they've gotten to the point where you're not going to be able to make a swap that gets you any better in the net of like what you've had to give up. With Philadelphia, you can swoop in on some of these. You're going to realize that the deadline is completely enter the tank. We'll take any asset we can get for this nice little reserve. And to your point, nice little reserves are exactly what Philadelphia needs on this top-heavy roster. So I would, if I was Philadelphia, really evaluate this deadline with the goal of getting better. But we talked about their shaky health. Speaking of shaky health, Anthony Davis was in the lineup tonight for Dallas. What do Locked On Mavs have to say about this game?
The Dallas Mavericks. I'll let you decide which one is the biggest one. Cooper Flag, 12 points, 5 of 15 from the floor in this game against the Sixers. Mavs lose this one. Their offense looks absolutely terrible. Is he hitting a rookie wall at this point? He struggled shooting in the last game he played as well. We're hitting the point in the season where he's played more games than he played in college, and so that could be a factor for him for sure. Rookie wall for Cooper Flag. Mavs absolutely have a point guard problem. This is a problem, but is it the biggest one? You decide. Ryan Nembhard played just 3 minutes in the second half. Really weird one for him. Wasn't even in foul trouble. Had one foul. Had 4 points and 2 assists in the first 2 minutes of the game. Looked like he was getting his shot off pretty well. And then Jason Kidd decided to go completely away from him in the second half. That was an issue. Brandon Williams played just under 24 minutes, and he shot 5 of 15 from the floor as well. And he struggled, and he's not really a point guard. That's kind of the problem with Brandon Williams. D'Angelo Russell did not play this game because of an illness. And that's the Mavs guards. That's the Mavs guards problem. And that is a problem right now. And Anthony Davis, in his first game back, played just under 37 minutes, which was kind of wild. Jason Kidd said he was going to be limited to 30 to 34. And he played more than that, but only 13 points, 8 boards, 2 assists, had 3 turnovers, 6 of 13 from the field. Not too bad. Kind of got worked by Joel Embiid a couple of times. Embiid is kind of looking good his last couple of games. So Anthony Davis, but it's a ramp back up game. Another problem for the Mavericks. So a bunch of different issues for the Mavs. Their offense just looked absolutely atrocious in this one.
Well, how is the rest of the play, Mrs. Lincoln? A lot of problems in Dallas. Go check out Locked On Mavs to see how they're going to get out of this. Coming up, let's talk about the Boston Celtics who had a much cheerier night from John Karalis. We're back on the Locked On NBA Game Night podcast on the Locked On Podcast Network, your teams every day. I'm Rylan Stiles, host of Locked On Thunder. That's David Ramil, host of Locked On Heat. And we're taking you through the Thursday night that was in the NBA. Thank you so much for making us your first listen. You everydayers make this show work. Let's head out to John Karalis, who is recapping the Celtics win over the Sacramento Kings.
Score does not indicate exactly how close this game was. I'm John Karalis from the Locked On Celtics podcast. It was a fight until the fourth quarter, and then Derrick White, who had only scored 2 points in the first 3 quarters, exploded for 14 in the fourth. Jalen Brown had a weird game, 29 points, 10 rebounds, 4 assists. That sounds great, but he couldn't hit a jumper to save his life, but he was just unstoppable getting to the rim, and he got to the line 7 times. So effective. Even though it's weird, once again, another team not known for its three-point shooting just destroys Boston early with a ton of three-pointers. That cooled off eventually, and the Celtics were able to take advantage. The bench was huge in the first half. That kind of switched in the fourth quarter in the second half, but they did a great job early on when the starters didn't have it. Celtics win 6 of 7. It doesn't matter how you get there, I guess, because it's a double-digit win on the road, so they'll take it. Much more coming up on the Locked On Celtics podcast.
David, honestly, you would look at this and you would say you'd hope that the Celtics could have mollywopped the Kings from start to finish. But on the road, going cross-country, any win is good. It's much rather to win ugly than to lose pretty. And you look at Boston, they did swell that 14-point lead. Again, as John's pointed out, that's not indicative of how the game flowed out, that 14-point lead came at the end of the game. 11 lead changes leading up to that, 12 ties leading up to that. The Kings at one point were up by 8. But in this messy game where everything was not going the Celtics' way, Jalen Brown fouling out, he mentioned Derrick White's cold stretch from the first 3 quarters, the Celtics found the way to win, and that's what matters most. And they kept the bad team losing, and good teams do that. Good teams can pad their record in games like this.
Yeah, I mean, I'd see it as an encouraging win. I mean, nothing that you want to brag about perhaps too much, but you take some comfort in being able to go on the road and try to find a way against a Kings team that caught a little fire early on, as he pointed out. I think road trips tend to be bonding experiences for teams like this, and for a group kind of, I wouldn't say so far as to searching for their identity, but trying to find themselves a little bit this season, because I think it started off with the idea that maybe they wouldn't be so good. And I think they've surprised a lot of people around the league by being as good as they've been. Obviously a fantastic record, 3rd in the Eastern Conference. But you know what? This is kind of an opportunity for them to maybe prove their mettle a little bit as they go on the road and showcase what they're building this season, with the overarching theme of when does Jason Tatum come back? Is that going to be something that we can rely on? Is he going to make our roster even better? Or do we still see ourselves as legitimate contenders this season, despite what the offseason moves and things of that sort? So I think it's a solid win, and you just want to keep building momentum because they do have a tougher challenge up ahead this weekend when they take on a hot Clippers team on Saturday.
Hot Clippers team indeed. They got another win, 118-101. The Clippers beat the Utah Jazz, and I know that people like to poo-poo the Jazz. They're capable of beating teams. Ask San Antonio, folks. So this is still a good win because it's the 6th straight win for the Clippers. 6 in a row, and not only have they won 6 in a row, Kawhi Leonard is turning back the clock. Is it 2014 all over again? 45 points in this game, 7 rebounds, 2 steals, 2 blocks. The Clippers were left for dead. I'll be honest. The Clippers, whenever they were tied for the top lottery odds in the league, had me on Tankathon every single day. Right now, they're still in the lottery. They're still tied for the 10th best odds in the NBA. But you look at it, they went from being the worst team in the NBA to being just, a game and a half out of the play-in tournament. And of the play-in teams that remain hanging around this area, you look at the Jazz, who they just beat, which is tied with LA. You look at Portland, who is going nowhere fast. They have the most incentive to win because they do not control their draft pick. So I ask you, are the Clippers back? Meaning, do you now seriously consider this a turned around season to the point of you have them back in that play-in picture?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I can't really say that with any kind of real assurance there, but I think it's interesting that they've been able to do this with some key injuries on the roster. They played the 4th quarter basically without James Harden, but I think they're still a dangerous team. And then with Kawhi, I guess it's all sustainable until it's not. And you look at Kawhi and his shaky health history and whether or not he's going to be able to keep up this level of play. But they're a solid team. They've had some nice contributions here and there from some young, unexpected players. I think it's I would say based on what we've seen of late, they're probably trending in the right direction. And I think they'll be able to surpass these other teams. What it's for, ultimately, who can say? I mean, look, you cover the Thunder. You go up in a one matchup against the let's say the Clippers wind up escaping the play-in tournament, right? And it's a 1-8 matchup. Are you concerned with this version of the Clippers team if you're the Thunder? I wouldn't think so.
I don't think anyone's going to be concerned with them big picture wise. I really don't. But there is something about like the possibility of being a bottom 3 team in the league record wise to making the quote unquote postseason, even if it's just the play-in tournament, or even if it's just the first round, you get swept by whoever the 2 seeds going to end up being between San Antonio, Denver, Houston, or the Thunder. There is just a little difference there, especially whenever you're not losing anything. Most teams who go that route of like trying to win and getting swept in the first round, they sting a little bit more because it's like, well, you could have just had a lottery pick, especially with the flattened lottery odds. The Clippers don't have that advantage, so they might as well try to ride this out for as long as you can and try to get the most out of Kawhi playing this way. I will say, for everyone that thinks that they're out of the woods with the Thunder's draft capital, the Clippers are why the Thunder have Jalen Williams, because they made the play-in tournament and lost the play-in tournament at pick number 12. So we'll see how that all plays out. But this is the first time since Pablo Torre found out that the Clippers have had anything to smile about. So let's give Locked On Clippers, let's give Dime Drop of that much to end this Thursday night. The Rockets did blow out the Brooklyn Nets 120-96 as KD returned to Brooklyn and put up 22 points on 53% shooting, got hit in the face by a brick from Danny Wolf, and Wolf, did he have a rough one? Danny certainly did, much like the entire Brooklyn Nets had a rough one in this one. Drake Powell was not good in that starting lineup. Nick Claxton continues to be serviceable. That's nice. Zaire Williams in their starting 5. This was just a game that was never a contest. It was wire to wire for Houston. Never a lead change, never a tie. And at one point, the Rockets got up by 26 points, and they held on to that momentum all the way through.
Yeah, I mean, Rockets did their job, right? And that's what they're supposed to do as semi-contenders there, a playoff team, obviously. And A solid win overall, getting some good performances from a number of players. Şengün was great with 20 points. Amen Thompson with 23. They had a nice outing. Obviously, their bench is a little questionable, although Reed Shepherd did wind up having a pretty solid game there. But there's not much to say about it. Houston got the job done as you would expect them to do so. And so a solid overall win. And you look at the Brooklyn side of things and you wonder how many of the players on their roster are kind of trying to make a push here to if they're a viable trade candidate or not. It just seems like that's one of those teams that a lot of people are looking probably to pick clean. The Vultures are circling over Brooklyn, that's for sure, trying to determine whether or not they are a Michael Porter Jr. away from maybe making a postseason push or anything like that. But, I want to take that question back to the Clippers. I know we're running short on time here because we were just asked this on a recent Heat episode. Are the Clippers team, like, you look at this Clippers team and a lot of people had seen what they did earlier in the season, and a lot of people thought, oh, they're clearly going to be sellers at the trade deadline. Obviously, there's still a lot of time left. But I think that's a question now that's no longer answerable because I would look at this Clippers group and I don't think they're going to be trading anyone. I don't think they're going to be blowing up the roster anytime soon, especially now that they're playing somewhere within the vicinity of the play-in tournament. Do you think that they're buyers or sellers at the market, or maybe they're just going to stand pat?
Yeah, I think that you kind of ride this out if you're the Clippers, and you have the All-Star game. That's a big deal around the trade deadline. Yeah, you're going to, hopefully for the Clippers' sake, you're going to ride this momentum for the next month leading into the real heat of trade conversations, and you just kind of ride it out. I do find it interesting that they are doing it, to your point, with the injuries on their current roster. And obviously, like, Bradley Beal's out for the year, but they're missing more than just him in this stretch. I mean, they didn't have Bogdanović in this game. They obviously have not had Zubac in this stretch of time, and they've played their best basketball without Zoo. Is there something too that, like, perhaps Zoo just doesn't fit with the offensive identity of this team anymore? And if you were looking at this just strictly as a business of like, okay, well, if this team proves over this next month that even whenever Zoo's out of the lineup, they can be play-in level good, which frankly, if you're looking at this from a business standpoint, is our ceiling anyway. If you can get some assets as a team that is depleted of assets for Zoo at the deadline, I don't know if that'd be considered selling. It would, of course, on the face be considered selling, but maybe just restocking some assets for a guy who the trade-offs have not cost you anything with your record yet. And maybe it catches up to them and it does cost them in the future. But as of right now, that's what I'm monitoring most closely. I don't think that you add anything to this team, but I do think that if you continue to play this way and he becomes expendable, you can kind of have your cake and eat it too. The benefits of reloading some assets with the benefits of still being a play-in team.
Yeah, well said. I think that's probably the way they're looking at things too. But it's just a question that I think has changed so much. So it's a remarkable turnaround in LA so far, and you wonder how sustainable it is. But it's trending, like I said, in the right direction. So you wonder how it's all going to play out this season. It's going to be an interesting one. I think it's going to be a lot of teams, especially what we just talked about in the Eastern Conference, that are kind of seeing themselves and positioning themselves, because that trade chatter is going to start to get really loud over the next month.
Oh, it certainly will. And we'll be here to cover it all. We'll be here for you again next Thursday night. But until then, you have Locked On NBA Game Night every single night, plus the Locked On NBA Daily Show every single day, recapping everything going on from storylines to games across the NBA. For David Ramil, I'm Rylan Stiles. Until next time, folks, be good and be good to one another.